Hello everybody, this is Ms. Knutson, and today I'll be guiding you through an IQR problem as well as building a boxing whisker chart from that data. So when you are working with IQR, you are generally given a set of numbers. Here I have the weights of puppies that were at the pet shop last week, and we will be constructing the boxing whisker plot based on that data. So before we begin, we need to identify the IQR and the range. So I'll set myself up for success, as we mentioned in previous classes, by creating a little information bank. So here we'll be identifying the lower extreme, the upper extreme, the median, as well as the lower quartile, the upper quartile. And from this data, it will give us our range and the IQR. So let's begin. In order to solve this information or to work with this data, we need to put the numbers in order from least to greatest. So I have 4, 8, 8, 9, 10, 14, and 7. So once I've put my numbers in order from least to greatest, I'll make sure I double check by counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you are watching this video for additional practice, feel free to pause the video right now, and then when you have completed the problem, then turn the video back on in order to check your work. Otherwise, we will continue. So in order to identify our lower extreme, we look at the lowest number in least to greatest order. So our lower extreme is 4. And in this chart, our upper extreme is the largest number, so in this case it is 17. In order to find our median, we cross out from both sides. I'll be using a different color to help you visually for 17, and I will keep crossing out until I arrive at one number in the middle. I just happened to land at 9. If you arrive to 2 numbers in the middle, you cannot have 2 medians. You need to add the 2 numbers together and then divide by 2. But in this circumstance, 9 is our median. It is our middle number. And in order to identify our lower and upper quartiles, we will draw a line through 9 to help us differentiate. And we are just looking at the lower quartile. So if I cross out from both sides, I see that my lower quartile, the median of the lower half, is 8. And I'll be taking the same step to identify our upper quartile. So remember, 9 is your median, you are not touching that number. And if you cross out from both sides, the upper quartile is 14. So now I've done a really great job of keeping my work nice and organized. So in order to identify the range, you would be subtracting your upper extreme, which is 17, subtract it from your lower extreme, so your range is 13. And again, what I did was I subtracted my upper extreme from my lower extreme. If it helps you remember, range ends in an E, and the words extreme both have an E in them. So in order to identify our IQR, we subtract our upper quartile from our lower quartile, which is 14 minus 8, and that gives us 6. So your IQR is 6. So again, upper quartile subtracted from your lower quartile, they both have a Q in them. So that's an easier way to remember IQR. So now it's time to create our box and whisker chart based on our data and information. So I'll be just turning the camera a little bit so that you still see the data. Now, when you're creating your number line, we cannot stress this step enough, that when you create your number line, you have to count by a systematic type of number. You can't just plot your answers on a number line. So this goes for any number lines that you construct in your future. Always count in a consecutive manner in order to make your timeline have appropriate flow in order to be correct. So the numbers within my data box generally land within 4 and 17. So in this case, I will be counting by 2s. And when I count by 2s, it kind of gives my number line a bit more flow, and I don't necessarily need to count by ones because the numbers fell comfortably within the number line. It is your determination of how you want to count on your number line. Sometimes if the numbers are larger, you might want to count by 5s or 10s. But in this circumstance, because the numbers ranged from 4 to 17, I felt counting by 2s is a bit safer. So what you're going to do, and I find this is the easiest manner for me. However, as a learner, if you find there's a better way for you to do it, then go ahead and do it. You're going to find your median. So my median in this circumstance is 9, so that would fall between 8 and 10. So I just draw a straight line and I label it M, my median. And you're basically going to be connecting your median to your lower quartile. So my lower quartile in this circumstance is 8, so I'll be drawing a line above the number 8, and I will label it LQ, and I'll be connecting my lower quartile and my median. Then I need to take the same steps, lower quartile, median, and find my upper quartile. My upper quartile is 14, so on my chart I will find the number 14 and draw my line, label it UQ, and then connect it to my median. So sometimes your boxes are not going to be just perfect squares, or your lower quartile may not necessarily be the same distance as your upper quartile, and that's perfectly fine. This just tells you, when you look at the majority of 50% of the data, that most of the puppies weighed between 9 and 14 pounds. But generally, 50% of the puppies actually weighed 8 to 14 pounds. Now you have these things known as outliers, or known as your lower and upper extremes. My lower extreme was 4, so in this circumstance I'll be drawing a dot above the number 4 and connecting it to my lower quartile. And this is just a visual for us to recognize that one of the puppies was extremely small. Probably the runt of the litter, so cute. Then we'll be looking at the upper extreme. The upper extreme, one of the puppies was 17 pounds, so I'll find that on my number line and then connect that. So this would be appropriate box and whisker chart. You have your box and your whiskers. These whiskers here, just an important vocabulary word for you to know. It's called an outlier. An outlier is a number that's in your data set that might not necessarily fit within your 50% of the data, and it will be your lowest value and your greatest value. So the puppies that fall within this range are not the puppies that weighed within the 50% of the data. So this was basically how you take an IQR problem, you collect the data, and then you apply it into a box and whisker chart. If you have any questions, please feel free to see one of us in class. However, one thing I cannot stress enough when creating your box and whisker chart is definitely make sure that your number line is being counted in a consistent manner. Whether you count by 2s, 5s, 10s, 20s, however you feel would match best with your data set. But again, make sure your number lines have a flow to them. Hope you enjoyed, and I hope you got something out of this video. And for those of you that paused to check your work, please let me know if you have any questions, and we'll see you in class. Good job. Thank you.